Hello there, it's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Okay, so today I'm going to make a peg bag. And what we're going to need for this, it's going to be a single layer peg bag, and it's going to be the simplest one that I can come up with. These are a pair of crimping shears. Now we use them just to seal off the ends to stop them from fraying. Now as you know, some fabrics fray more than others. So we're going to use crimping shears on the edges. We're going to need normal scissors. We're going to need a pen, a coat hanger. Now this is a coat hanger from a pair of trousers, but what we're going to need is a small coat hanger, whether that's from children's clothes or anything else like that. But a small coat hanger, a piece of paper, and what I have here is a strip of fabric. Now this is slightly larger than the depth that I want of the peg bag, and it is about, well, it is 25 centimetres wide. Okay, I've got this fabric on a fold. I'm just going to leave it there and I'm going to use that in a minute. I have my coat hanger here, and what I'm going to do is as simple as I'm going to draw round this coat hanger. Now as I know that the rest of the bag is just a square, I don't need to worry about that, do I? I can just cut a square. I can do that, but if you're not comfortable with that, then do cut the pattern out for that. So let's get rid of this paper because we don't need it. What I have here is pretty much an outline of the coat hanger. So I am going to cut 3/4 of an inch round this, and when I come to the top I'm going to cut an inch round. This is so that I can hem the top, and I just want this peg bag to be as nice as possible but still remain quite simple. Now I have the two loose ends of my fabric here. I'm going to place this pattern here. I can use a couple of pins, or if I want to be very, very risky, I can use a weight. But I'm going to use pins. It just means that everything is secure. Yeah, it's terrible to go wrong at this point. Now, because I know that I need my peg bag as a square, I'm going to write a dotted line on here, and I'm going to do an arrow. Now, it is literally just to remind me not to grab my scissors and then cut along this bottom. But I'm definitely going to cut along the top because that's the information I need. So I'm just going to take a moment to do that. So we have quite a strong idea now of the size and the shape of the peg bag. One thing that we have to do is we also have to choose where we're going to have our opening. Now I suggest halfway down, and we can either decide where halfway is by folding it and then marking it with a pin, or we can just risk it and cut halfway. Now the nice thing about folding it and marking it is that we know that this line is going to be straight. So that's that. We've done all our cutting out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew it, and then I'm going to put pinking shears cuts on this edge, because this is the only edge that will need it. Okay, I can either get rid of that or I can save it for another day. It depends how many matching pieces of trouser sorry, it depends how many matching trouser coat hangers I've got. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a tiny hem on where the coat hanger hook comes out of the peg bag. An iron is ideal for this. Yeah, and then you just fold it over and a little bit of steam, not too much because you don't want it wet when you sew it, and then we can sew it. So, stay. I am then going to just put a pin in the end. I'm going to take my sewing machine, which I've set up. I've taken a practice bit of matching cloth, and I've just checked to see that it's happy to sew this cloth. And it's always a good idea because you then know that it's going to work. So I'm going to take the side that's not pinned and I'm going to place that underneath the foot of the sewing machine. I'm going to lower my needle. It saves a lot of trouble if you just take the time to do that. And very simple, I'm going to stitch those through. I'm going to take the other longer piece, so this is the 1.5 lengths, and I'm going to fold that over. Again, I can iron, again I can pin, and I'm going to continue the line of stitches that onto this. Now, it's kindest to our sewing machine to continue sewing, so it's the stopping and starting that really doesn't make the machine happy. Okay, I'm going to take the first piece that I've sewn, and I'm going to fold up the edge that I cut halfway down. Now, I do have to remember to make sure that both of my seams are now facing me. So again, I can iron this seam, I can pin this seam, and all I need to do is just very straightforward, straight stitches. Easy. Okay, I'm going to take the larger one, and again I'm going to sew up this bottom seam. Now I'm also got to make sure that I can see the seam at the top as well, so that I know that I'm doing it on the right side. And it's just a matter of lying it out. And if you are sewing anything, it's always a good idea to place it on the table so that it keeps your stitches straight, so it doesn't pull off from the sewing machine. Okay, well, how wonderful is that? We've made quite a large dent in this sew, and I would say we're more than halfway there. Let's get rid of the sewing machine. So what I'm left with is 2 pieces of fabric. I'm just going to trim this end so that I have now got 2 pieces of fabric. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place it so the seams are now turned down, and then I'm going to place it so that the seams are now turned up. Now this is called right side to right side, and you'll hear the term used quite a lot in all sewing. I've matched my seams up at the top here, and I've just placed 1 pin in. Now I need to take this fold of fabric and I need to line it up. Now I'm going to put a slight overlap of this. Now this is just to keep it as nice as possible. I don't want to put in a large overlap because that will mean that it will be difficult for the pegs to get in and out once I've finished sewing. But once I'm happy with the placement of this fold of fabric, I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to mark the bottom, and I'm going to mark the bottom. And of course I can pin all the way along if I want to, but I'm definitely going to mark where the fold is, and I'm definitely going to mark where the seams are. This is because this is where it would flop open in the sewing machine. So now I have my 5 pins, and 5 I suppose we would say is the minimum that we need. Now, before I start sewing, I'm going to check that I have my seam here at the back and I have my seam here at the front. Now I don't need to worry about leaving a hole to put in the turning inside out bit, because I have got that big hole in the middle. Once I'm thoroughly happy, then I can start sewing. Now I've given myself 3/4 of an inch sewing allowance. Now this is slightly larger than normal, but this is so that I can trim these edges once they're sewn to make my crimping shear edges. Okay, when I go over my seams, sometimes I'm going to lift my foot and literally push it under the needle. This is so that I get it as crisp as possible. Now if we take a second just to look at the lines on our sewing machine, you'll see that they're already marked out for us. If you do have a problem keeping to the line, then what we can do is we can put a little sticky bit over there just to keep an eye on it. So now that I've done one side, I can now take the pin out of the other side and I can start sewing. Making sure that when I come up to the centre, the halfway point, and I have these seams, I can sew close and make sure that I've got both seams lined up before I continue sewing. Okay, so it's all very simple so far, isn't it? When I do come to the corner, the top here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my needle down, I'm going to lift my foot, and I'm going to turn the whole garment round. Okay, and one of the things to do to make it look really tidy is just make sure these seams line up. Now if we do it when we are a good 3 or 4 inches away, then we can adjust it slightly by lifting up the top piece of cloth to take more in from the top, or lowering the cloth so we can take more in from the bottom. Okay, well we're here really. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay it flat on the table. To sharpen your crimping shears, if they are slightly blunt, you can just take a piece of aluminium foil and you literally cut firmly down. Now, rather with scissors. Okay, let me take a pair of scissors and a piece of cloth. I'm going to hold my scissors, and I can literally not move them, but I can slice the fabric. So, as I'm demonstrating badly on this piece of paper. So, but with crimping shears you have to, rather than slice, 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 slice. And that way you get the definite duft. Okay, I'm going to pause the camera and I'll be right back with you. So, hello there. Before we turn it inside out, one thing I'd like to say is we cut it and then we move it along and we line up our previous teeth before we cut again. And this way you get much more of a dramatic effect. So, yes, aluminium, tin foil, aluminum foil, just to sharpen your scissors. or you can use steel wool, and you just cut into it, cut into it, cut into it. Obviously you've got to be careful what you do with the splinters. So now we've done our nice little edges there, and we've also made sure that we've trimmed the end threads. I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it inside out. Now at this point is the best point to push out your corners. It's very easy just to sort of not bother, but it needs to be done. And you'll just get that much nicer finish if we do it now, rather than assume that time will push them out neatly. So that's what I'm left with. A big gaping hole for lots of pegs, a real family size peg bag this. Now we know that we measured it, so we know that this is going to slide in quite easily. And there we have our trouser hanger placed in there. Now, okay, entirely up to you. If you can, if you want to, what I'm going to do, I'll do it off camera, is just place a couple of invisible stitches just at the bottom of this coat hanger, so that it doesn't sort of flop about and every time you go to use it you've got to find the handle. But just a simple matter, thread, knot, take it from the inside to the outside, and literally just 3 stitches along there. And there we have a perfectly functional and personalised peg bag. Thanks ever so much for watching. My name's Fiona from Weekly Sewing Bee. Bye bye.